I want to reflect a little bit right now about the state of AI. The state of AI at the start of 2023. Partly this is a personal reflection on where things are at, what's been happening, where things are likely to go. It's a reflection on how industries will be transformed or entirely new industries will be created. Most of all, it's a reflection of how far we've come so quickly in such a short period of time and what that's likely to mean for this year, for 2023 specifically. It's the furthest I can even imagine seeing. 2024 is so unwritten at the pace that things are changing. It's going to be a very interesting year. And I think it's going to be a very positive year in very interesting ways. Now, unless you've been living under a rock somewhere, you're aware of tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney. But you may not really have played with them or experimented with them deeply enough to understand how significant these tools are. Tech disruption is a thing. Tech disruption has been a thing forever. My first ever business was a digital publishing company based on CD-ROMs and DVDs. I was working for Sony, saw a great opportunity, dove in, did really well, made a lot of money. It was my first significant business ever, and it lived for 3 years before the internet disrupted it out of existence. The entire industry just consolidated and collapsed, and we pivoted into entirely new technologies as we do. But this is the first time, I think, in the history of humanity where we're seeing a disruption in the field of creativity. So I have watched technology advance my entire life, and I know enough about history to see some of the significant points where tech disruption has happened. The invention of the automobile, the invention of the airplane, the invention of electricity. These are big disruptions from what happened before. They created new opportunities, but they also killed industries, changed how people work, and created new dependencies as well. But in every example of tech disruption, the disruption has been about eliminating more mundane tasks, manual labor, moving things around, lifting heavy objects. What did they do before the forklift? In all of these cases, they made things safer, and for humans, they made things safer, ultimately. And yes, they forced people into new jobs and new skills and new learning, and that was disruptive. But in the end, the result was clearly good. Good for people. Less injuries, less deaths. And I see that ultimately as a positive thing. Now, we've also seen tech that has caused new problems. Cars are great, but alcohol plus cars is disaster, right? So, we see auto accidents all the time. Occasionally we see crazy plane accidents. We see things like 9/11. So tech is a double-edged sword. And AI is probably the sharpest double-edged sword I've ever seen. It has the ability to do such amazing things, to enable anybody to make beautiful art or beautiful poetry or to write a movie script or to do pretty darn near write code, even if you've never seen code before. The potential of this is amazing, but what's the other side of the sword look like? How does that affect us? When it comes to creative industries, I'm scared. I'm scared because part of my philosophical understanding of what makes humans and machines different has always been the ability to create, the ability to take a blank sheet of paper and come up with something beautiful, come up with something amazing, come up with something awe-inspiring that somehow exemplifies the experience of being human and the things that are important to us, the things that we find magical about life about the universe, about everything. If you haven't looked at Midjourney, go have a look at the public galleries. And there is an option there. You can click not just on the public galleries, but there is a best of. The public galleries alone will blow your mind. But the best of, it should be in the Louvre. Like, the ability of the AI to synthesize not just scenes of beauty and marvel, but to take completely disparate ideas. What does a universe look like inside a bottle? It can make a picture and you go, oh yeah, that's a universe inside a bottle. Of course. But I would not have, in my case, as someone who is not creative artistically, to me that is an absolute marvel. I couldn't even synthesize what that image should look like in my mind. What does the Chicago skyline look like made out of Legos? I asked Midjourney the other day. It came up with some pretty impressive results. What does C3PO look like as a carrot? It will find a way to make that, and you will look at it and it will make sense. Doesn't matter whether your mind was able to synthesize even the fundamental idea of what that could look like and how to represent it in the most accurate way possible. It will create it, and it will create it in seconds. And just to add insult to injury, it will create 4 of them, so you can just pick the one that you like best and then create more variations. It's an amazing tool. But I've never seen a technology come along and in such a short period of time. It's really only been in the last 6 months. The last 6 months of 2022 were world-changing in the world of AI, of publicly accessible AIs, and how it can change the life of everyone out there who has access to the internet, even on a phone. Okay, it doesn't matter if you're in the middle of Uganda. If you have a phone, you can access ChatGPT, and you can write poetry in Yiddish. It doesn't care. It's just amazingly powerful. AI is the first time I've seen a technology come onto the scene that raises significant philosophical questions. Questions like, what is intelligence? What is sentience? What does it mean for something to be alive, and at what point do you consider giving it personhood? We define certain cetaceans, I think. An octopi is an example of a sentient organism in many parts of the world. We've classified life forms, non-human life forms, as sentient for their ability to solve problems and to understand complex situations. But you look at what AI can do, and immediately you're like, well, it can do that better than me. How can I not see it as sentient? How can I not see it as some kind of form of intelligence with its capabilities? It is amazing, and it is getting more amazing week after week after week after week. If I have the opportunity to reflect again, even in 6 months' time, a year's time, I'm going to look back on this video and go, things were so much simpler then, you know. I really don't know what to expect, but it is moving so quickly, it is hard to predict the reality of the outcome of this. But in terms of disruption to the creative industries, and specifically right now, it looks like visual art, in particular painting, drawing, pencil drawing, cartooning, anime, manga, anything involving taking an idea and presenting it on paper. Those industries are going to change so strongly. I was talking to family who is going into architecture, going to architecture school starting this year. And I explained to her, look, you have to go to architecture school because you have to get certified in order to be an architect. But it's very likely that what you're going to learn in architecture school over the next 3 or 4 years is going to have zero relevance to the experience of being an architect in 3 or 4 years. This is what AI is going to do. Instead of coming up with an idea, talking to a client, visualizing some housing options, taking a pen to paper, doing some mock-ups, doing design work, doing costing work, you're literally going to talk to the client and then walk over to a computer and describe what the client wants in terms that the AI can best effect into design options. And instantly, before the client has had time to take another sip of water, you will have presented to them a huge range of options that they can immediately look at. They can look at styles. Then you choose where that house is going to be built, and it will look at the neighborhood and it will say, oh, well, look at all these other houses here. They have this particular kind of style, so we need the facade and the coloring and the size and the shape to kind of match. And oh, look, it's going to have trees all around, so we want to design the house in this way. And then you'll get to orient the house, and it'll look at the next 50 years of sun patterns and weather, and it will help you adjust the exact orientation of the house so that the sun comes into the bedroom windows right at the perfect time of the morning, and so that the side of the house that has the deck where you do your barbecues during the summer doesn't get too much wind from the ocean breeze, and all of these incredible things. And it is going to do it in the blink of an eye and effortlessly, which means that the role of an architect is dramatically changed. It's no longer the creative idea person. It is the person who guides the client's own creativity, funnels it into something meaningful, and then directs it at the AI, which is the power tool of this experience. And then, of course, the client will slap on some VR goggles and walk through their new home and check it out and make some changes however they want. And then you'll have the AI exactly cost it down to the last screw so that it fits perfectly within their budget. And then you'll probably have robots build it before long, or have it produced at a 3D printing factory that prints homes, which is actually a thing in China now, I understand. So this is happening. This is real. When I was a kid, this stuff was sci-fi. It was like, wow, what if? What if the world could be this way? What if we had flying cars and fast-moving sidewalks and, could teleport places? It's beginning to feel like that reality is real. And it is going to be incredibly disruptive. There are techs that disrupt massively, right? But this technology is ripping the head clean off of industries and roles and even entire categories of skills that for all of human history until now we saw as fundamentally human. Making music, making art, creative writing, poetry, storytelling. Now, in some ways, these tools are going to be amazing power tools for storytelling. And we're at a point now where I think that's what we have to withdraw to is I have an idea. And then everything between that idea and reality is handled by the AI. It handles most of the visualizations. I'll direct it towards my own vision. It'll handle aspects of how should the song be structured, and what words and what language and what instruments and how fast, and it will create it. The pace is moving so fast, though, I'm even worried that concept of what these roles will look like. An artist will change from someone who has a piece of paper and knows how to draw and make beautiful imagery to someone who knows how to write a prompt in an AI. It's changing so fast. Take, for example, speech cloning. Speech cloning is a technology where you can speak to an AI, give it some voice, and it will learn how to replicate your voice exactly, and then you can have it read, your most recent blog post and turn it into a video, and it will read it exactly in your voice. It used to be just a few short weeks ago, probably, certainly within few months ago, you could train an AI with 30 minutes of voice to sound pretty much exactly like you, almost undiscernibly like you, timing, phrasing, word choice, everything. Probably even idiosyncrasies, which I'm sure I have a ton of. Now, you can train an AI. As of last week, I was reading about a paper released by Microsoft. You could train an AI to mimic your voice perfectly, near perfectly, in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. Which means you could pick up a phone, talk to a customer support department, and in 3 seconds of, yes, I'd like to speak to, washing machine repair, it clones your voice, and now the rep you're talking to sounds exactly like you. That's not a very useful scenario. That's not a use case that I can imagine actually happening. But things are gonna get weird fast. There are so many doors opened. It's like if we lived in a giant mansion of possibility. Some of the doors are locked, some of the doors are sticky, there are a lot of doors. Some people are good at getting through certain doors, some people have keys to certain doors, but overall, the entire space of possibility has barriers to accessing it. I don't have the ability normally to take a blank sheet of paper and draw something beautiful. It will be interesting and you'll probably laugh. All of those doors have been blown clean off their hinges. Every room is accessible now. If you know how to write a prompt, I'll give another example. The other day, someone asked, I do a lot of technology work around building websites, and part of that is sometimes creating test data that looks real, because you need to build your layout, so you need a list of 50 doctors and so on. And someone asked, how can I find a data set, like test data, so I can get a list of cars, I need a list of doctors, I need this and that. Where do I find these? And I wrote an answer, because there are some services that I've used in the past, and then suddenly it clicked. It's 2023 now. Any question involving text, in any form, in any shape at all, doesn't matter what it is, the answer is try ChatGPT. Try ChatGPT before anything else. Before you start Googling for a database of cars, try ChatGPT. So I went to ChatGPT and I said, create me some fake dummy data. I want a list of doctors. I need 50 names. I want name, address, specialization, birth date, age, social security number, LinkedIn profile, URL, and make it as CSV, comma separated format, which is a format I can load directly into my web design software's database. Created. In less than 10 seconds, I had 50 doctors, and they were perfect for what I was doing. The names, even they all began with doctor. The birth dates were all realistic. There weren't any 200-year-old doctors in the list, right? The years in service, I asked it, give me years in service. It listed years in service as a doctor within their birth date range, and very realistically, it was usually 9 years, 10 years, 12 years, but it would always fit, like when they would have graduated college. I don't know how it was able to get that precise. Now, this is where we're going to get into an interesting discussion on the philosophy side of what's happening here and how is it perceived by people as they experience it. It is trippy. It's trippy. But this data was amazing. You could even say, go find photos of each doctor, and it will manufacture URLs. There are a lot of services out there which can generate images, fake images, or not talking about AI, but like, for example, Unsplash. I could say, get me a photo of a Volvo car, and it will find me a photo of a Volvo car, and it will pick one randomly from its set of images that are tagged as Volvo cars. And Midjourney can access, ChatGPT could access that and add it as a column into my CSV. And now I've got photos of all of my cars, or photos of all of my doctors. And then I told it, okay, now make all of the names of the doctors Chinese. And I want it written in simplified Chinese characters. Boom. renamed it. Renamed all of them. It was so efficient. Now, that's a practical use. That would have just taken hours of let's go into Google Sheets and type some data and copy and paste some stuff and search some sites and make up some names, and I would have functions that do randomization, and I'd have functions that are collating things, and I'd have functions that are calculating stuff, and that would create my test data set. All of that's gone. I don't need to do any of that. So, if you've looked at Midjourney, if you've tried creating music with any music AIs, if you've played with Murph AI is a little bit different. Murph AI is voice synthesis, but oftentimes it is voice cloned from a voice actor, and it's really amazing. You can have James Earl Jones read your your third grade poetry report, right? There's all kinds of different possibilities here, but why does it seem so smart? How is it that it is difficult to identify it as a machine? When I was in high school, I had a friend who I was lucky enough to be in all the advanced classes. I rated highly enough on all of my test scores that I was at the top 0.0001% of the class. So you automatically get placed in all of the AP classes and all of the advanced stuff. And there was one friend of mine who was in those classes, and he struggled. He always struggled. He was incredibly determined to learn. He was incredibly determined to learn a lot. But he didn't have that sort of intuitive, natural ability to just get it. He didn't have that ability to just understand things. Just encountering a new idea, or connect things that would appear unrelated on the outside, but that it's kind of the nature of what we often identify as genius, is the ability to connect things that other people can't see. Now we're seeing AIs do that at ridiculous levels. If you've been watching AIs in chess or in Go, the audience. There was a situation recently where AI beat the World Go Championship. This was actually almost 18 months to 2 years ago, I think. And the audience is watching this and wow, it's doing really well. And then the AI made a move, and they're like, oh crap, it broke. That move made no sense at all. It is completely off the rails. Even the programmers are like, oh no, it's completely failed. Until about 10, 15 moves later, when the whole audience, at the same time, all the humans who are master Go players, suddenly went, oh my god. That move set up a chain of events that we could not see that far ahead. None of the humans in the room, they all thought it had just fallen over. And it was the most brilliant move they had ever seen. This is the experience of AI. Now, this friend in high school persisted hard, and his approach to learning was to memorize everything. He would study so hard, and he would use his ability to memorize just through brute force training and repetition to overcome the limitations of natural genius. He is now a brain surgeon, okay? So it is definitely possible, and we've all known people who seem really smart, but in fact they just know a lot. Another friend of mine has an eidetic memory, which basically means that he knows everything. He can sing Les Mis, any of song from Les Miserables, in at least 8 different languages from memory. How, in my mind, that skill is, alien. But he can do that, and it makes him appear ridiculously intelligent. You meet him and you'd be like, that's the smartest guy I've ever met. My theory is, he may not be that smart. He has a huge amount of knowledge, which allows him to draw conclusions more efficiently. But does he have really advanced problem-solving skills, or things that we would really identify as very unique ability to connect unrelated things in the realm of genius, something more like Einstein, who could make intuitive leaps that the rest of us look at it and go, I just don't get it. But as we're seeing now with AI and the example of Go, of the Go competition, world competition, is that the experience of having a system that has such a vast data store of memory, of possibilities, of past games, of possible moves, it is so huge that it seems it's indifferentiable from genius for us. It is off the charts genius for us. And this is our new world today. You create a universe in a bottle. You create the world's best song ever written. I think in a year's time, we're going to see almost no human-created original content at all. It will be in the corners. In the same way that that assembly line manufacturing eliminated the industries of, hey, I want a custom handbag. I'm going to talk to Scarlett, and Scarlett's going to create me this gorgeous handmade custom handbag. That doesn't happen much anymore. That is now a bespoke, handcrafted, unique industry business. Now 99.999% of all the handbags are made by an assembly line, by a group of people. Yes, it had a designer. Now that role's gone too, right? So this is, if you look at AI, have a look at what it's creating in terms of sneakers and handbags and clothing and basic things. People are just struggling to come up with ideas and like, well, what does this even mean? Like, how do I can design a new car? Wow, okay, that is a really cool looking car. You see, it's just unlimited. All the doors are blown off the hinges for everyone. And the impact of that in 2023 is going to be absolutely breathtaking. So, is it alive? Is it smart? Is it intelligence? I don't know. I don't know the answer. And what's interesting is you even look at recent videos put out in discussions. There's a great one by Ray Kurzweil. Ray Kurzweil is a futurist who years ago projected an event which he refers to as the singularity. If you're not familiar with the singularity, it is the idea that the pace of technology has been going like this through human history and then accelerating and then accelerating and accelerating. And if you look at the math, there is a point where it becomes a vertical line. And that vertical line is coming fast. Within 15 years, I think his date was 2038. And it's coming, right? And it's simply a mathematical observation looking at trends. That's all the singularity is. It doesn't predict what is going to happen at that point. We have no idea. So either the theory is sentient AI, or possibly humans have the ability to upload themselves into a computer. It's going to be an absolute game changer where reality for humans fundamentally shifts. Technology is creating technology. AIs are creating AIs. AIs are creating humans and custom engineering DNA. We don't even know. I don't even know. I have no idea. It's so hard to even guess. You could throw things at the wall, but what makes sense? What's that going to look like? What does infinite technological capability look like? Can't manage infinity, so I can't manage that. And going to be interesting. The only thing I can promise, it's the old Chinese proverb, right? May you live in interesting times, which is meant to be a curse, because that's sort of the opposite of peace and comfort, and predictability and stability. We're in interesting times. And I don't think that is a bad thing. I think it's inevitable. I'm hopeful we won't see too many disasters. The very recent situation regarding Google and Microsoft, where Microsoft has a controlling interest in ChatGPT and was releasing a version into Bing's search engine, and Google freaked out because that would have potentially the ability to completely upset Google's dominance in search in a fundamental way, which is the cornerstone of the entire Google empire. All of it is centralized on search. Without search, it's like taking the heart out of a bear. It's still a bear, but it's not, it's not working anymore. It no longer has any foothold on the industry. So that's happening, and Google immediately wanted to rush to release an AI of their own. They also have a lot of interesting history here, but Google also has a number of AIs that are, very useful, but for whatever reason they chose not to release publicly as part of their core product offering, including search. And they are rushing into apparently releasing one in the next few weeks. Now, we're already seeing problems. We're already seeing problems with Bing's integration. But here's the thing: even if everything worked perfect, so that scares me. That scares me. It's a AI alone is a power tool, right? And it's like a nuclear arms race sparking off, where they are going to feel pushed just from a survival standpoint. If our business is going to survive, we must maintain dominance, or we must get ahead. And if that is going to rush any decisions regarding AI, regarding its stability, regarding its appropriateness, regarding its reasonable lack of bias, racism, sexism, any kind of isms, right? All of this, if that is being rushed, what are the consequences? Even more scary. What are the consequences that we'll never even know about? What are the search results it won't give us? How's this going to, and how would we even know? How would we even know? So this is already a big problem. But I think it's going to it's going to be a much more turbulent ride than that, and than even that, right? And part of the reason I think that turbulence is there is government regulation. Governments, especially major governments, the United States included, has a habit of legislating things on technology that it does not understand. And we're talking simple things. Germany recently legislated that you cannot reveal someone's IP address. You cannot store someone's IP address, which means, or you cannot if you have a website in Germany and it's using Google fonts, but Google fonts are over there in the US, then that website visitor's IP address is now going to the US. That's a no-no. That's a problem. And suddenly this is a huge problem for German businesses and German website designers. And it is growing. It is spreading across the EU out of privacy concerns. Now you look at a small situation, a relatively small problem, fear, concern like that, and you ask the question, well, what's the impact of the fact that the legislators didn't understand and didn't know who to ask, or the right questions to ask, or the appropriate response to give, and just slammed down some legislation, and now everybody has to somehow respond to that? Now multiply that times AI. The potential for lawmakers to upset, to create turbulence in the development of AI is extreme. And it's not just a problem of a country or a government legislating a thing. It's that every country and every government is going to legislate its own thing. GDPR in the European Union is a great example of that, and how suddenly the whole world now has to have cookie consent dialogues on every website. Why? To make your experience more enjoyable. It's because of some laws in Europe that are concerned about cookies. Why? Cookies are not a threat, okay? They've been around since the beginning of the internet. They make the internet work. If you don't have cookies, good luck with login. And yet, these legislators don't actually ask anybody, right? They make decisions. The U.S. has done this again and again and again, where they make legislative decisions without considering the technical costs or consequences. and they are to the extreme. Now, where I fear the impact of that in AI is that you're going to see industries take off in a new area, AI-based architecture, and then something's going to shift, and suddenly the plane is now flying sideways, and then it's nosediving, and then it's up. No one is going to have any idea what tomorrow is going to look like at any given moment, because at any moment, the rules are going to change, the boundaries are going to change, and you're going to see chaos. Total chaos. Is Midjourney going to be around in a year? Well, you know, in some form, I'm absolutely sure it will. But I also wonder about the impact of governments to freak out, their ability to freak out and make rash, bad decisions that end up essentially kneecapping the companies underlying the development of these technologies. Even the internet itself. I used to think, well, the internet is completely unassailable. We depend on it so much. You can't legislate something that's going to affect the internet. And yet, I've seen legislation affect the internet. Right? I've seen legislation come out that has forced companies to make major infrastructure changes. And that all trickles down. That all ends up affecting us as users. Our experience on, all the way down to our experience on websites and cookie consent dialogues. So, I don't know what to expect. I don't know what to expect, but I can be sure of this. Interesting times. I hope the world will still be here. That's a joke. But it is going to be just so wild. Everything seems uncertain at this point. And I hope to check in about 6 months' time and reflect again on what I've seen in the next 6 months that's different from the last 6 months. And I'm equally excited and petrified.